In the testimony today was Gabriel's aunt, who is now 21. So basically, what you can probably guess is that she was fairly young when everything was happening, and the things that she did see, it was hard for her because as a minor, she wasn't sure what to do, and so it was a little heartbreaking. Her testimony was emotional, definitely. You can tell that she just didn't know what to do as a child, and I think that's completely fair. I don't want to go too much into what she said, but basically there are some discrepancies between what she feels that she said when some DCFS caseworker was there in regards to what the DCFS caseworker said. Well, to start off, there was a phone call that was made to, I believe it was either 911 or a social worker, and it was made by Gabriel's grandmother, and she just expressed that she was concerned about Gabriel, and that I believe the aunt was there with her, trying to help her and give her information. She talked about in the phone call. She talked about her concern for Gabriel because she didn't believe that her daughter was mentally stable, and that she had had him all his life for 8 years. So she was worried about him. I mean, his aunt was also worried about him. But again, she was a little bit younger, So I think she didn't really know what to do at that time, which is fine. She must have been like 15 or 16 at that time. So she was still, young. And even today at court, she still has that youthfulness that you would expect from a 21-year-old. So they also showed the photo of Gabriel with the mohawk, where he had the small mohawk, and then there was like chunks of hair missing. The aunt was the one that actually took the photos, and she took it so she could show her parents pictures of Gabriel, because at that point Pearl wasn't letting them see Gabriel, and they wanted to see him. So she took these pictures, and they asked her if there was chunks of hair missing, and she said yes. And then when she asked what happened, Pearl said that she did it as a form of discipline or something. She said that there was like a couple of questions about Gabriel's black eyes, and she said that basically every time that they were always fresh, so she was confused about which story that they wanted her to answer questions about, because there was a lot of different stories. Like, again, Gabriel would say different reasons as to why something would happen until he would finally feel comfortable enough to say what the truth was. And then they got to the point where, they, I guess, didn't want to call anymore, because they got to a point where they stopped calling for help, 911, because they felt as though Pearl would keep Gabriel away from them. So I guess he had come to spend the night at the grandparents' house, and there was some kind of wound on the bottom of his foot, and I guess Pearl had admitted to doing that to him. But she, as a child, I mean, she's under 20, she's under 18 at this point, so she wanted to protect all the kids, so she kept asking about spending the night over there, so she would try to spend the night, but didn't really know what else to do. So the last time that she was there was on May 22nd, and that was when they asked her, or she asked where Gabriel was, and they said that he was over at Tony's mom's house spending time over there, and she didn't hear him, she didn't see any signs of him. So of course, looking back now, it was painful for her to think about that, because knowing that he was actually there, it, there's no words to say how she feels, because you can see it in her face. And it's, for a young person like that, it's probably pretty destroying. And so my heart really goes out to her, and I felt really bad that she had to sit there and have the cross-examination do what they did. But they did try to pull some antics, and just asking about Tony and the relationship she had with him, like how she knew him and stuff like that. And if when Gabriel was taken, if she was concerned about the other children, she said yeah, she was concerned about all the kids' safeties. And there was 2 or 3 times that she was there and a social worker showed up. And in the social worker statement, and this is where I'm going to be a little bit more detailed, because it's interesting. In the social worker statement, in the report, it wasn't consistent with everything the aunt had said. So there was a discussion about his behavior, and they asked whether or not he ate cat food or litter ever, and she was like no. And then she said that he did have a habit at ages like 4 or 5, that he would bite the puppy's paws or his ears. And they try to make it sound like he did this as an older child, but he was just a little kid. But what kid doesn't do something to an animal, because that's kind of like a thing. I don't think he meant harm. Let's see. There was testimony that Pearl had put a hot spoon to the bottom of Gabriel's foot. And several times Gabriel had said that he was afraid of Pearl. And not just after he moved in with her, but before that, because he felt like she didn't love him. So he was always kind of scared of her, and had said on multiple occasions that he was afraid that she was going to kill him. So she did witness a bruise on Virginia's ribs. So that was one thing that came out of that. It got really intense because there was kind of a shift in blame, and where they were trying to kind of say that Gabriel needed a lot of discipline, that he needed a lot of stuff like that. And in that whole questioning, everything that happened after that, it really made her cry and break down. So again, my heart goes out to her. Like I know it was rough, and I get that the defense is trying to defend their client. It was rough. So there was a detective that testified today. His name is Detective Uribe. And he has been a detective, he's been with the force for 26 years. He's been in the Special Victims Unit for 10. And he was the original investigating officer. So he was the one that started investigating the whole thing prior to the arrest, and without the knowledge of the 911 call. So he basically walked into a situation and started trying to figure out what was going on and trying to get the details. So one of the things about the 911 call that I found interesting, this is me, just my own observation, is that you have somebody calling 911 in regards to a child not breathing. And he was so calm. Like it was kind of eerie. He was just really calm. He's not breathing. And then he was like, the only time he sped up is when he was doing these little inserts of lies, when he was trying to lay his story, that somebody else did it, that it was the other child that did it. But other than that, he was like, you can hear the calm in his voice. And when he supposedly was doing the CPR, you could hear him, like he sounded like he was counting to 30 with the pumps, and then he blew into Gabriel's mouth. But it like, it sounded like it wasn't something that he wanted to do, or there was no sense of urgency, which was really kind of interesting. But that's just me. That's the way I took it, and what I heard from the calls. So when he began, this detective started off at the Children's Hospital, or AV Hospital, and he saw Gabriel, and then he went to interview Aguirre. And at the beginning of the interview, he literally said, "You are not under arrest. We're just here for some questioning, and you are welcome to leave at any point in time." So he gave him that out. He told him he was able to leave. And there was, of course, no concern, no worry about Gabriel at that point. He was just calm, cool, and collected. He sets up a whole story, and basically we're listening. We've at this point listened to the first interview, the audio interview of Aguirre and this detective. And so that's where I'm saying he was calm and stuff like that. He was completely calm. So he's having this conversation, and the detective's really, I'm really interested in the way he does his job, because he really kind of bonded with him and said, try to, set the stage up for him. So Aguirre sets up that Gabriel's causing issues with the cops, with CPS. He's having, he's saying, oh, he keeps hitting himself, he keeps injuring himself. So he sets this whole story up for, why Gabriel looks the way he does while he's in the hospital. So the detective finally says, "Look, I'm going to be honest with you because I want you to be honest with me." And he says, Gabriel's not doing well. And so when he says that, Aguirre's response is, "He's still alive?" Like he was surprised. And I found that interesting because, why are you surprised? Like, wouldn't you want him to be alive? I don't know. So the detective again is asking for the truth. He says, "Look, I just need you to give me the information so I can give to the doctor, so the doctor can fix whatever was done." And Asaro is still he's kind of withholding. He's still super calm. But he starts loosening up, and he starts saying, "Oh, I hit him, and he fell off a bike." And he talks about being frustrated because the detective at this point is he's kind of buddying up to him, and he's like, "I can understand frustration." And he goes, and he asks him from 1 to 10, "How frustrated were you?" And Aguirre says 20. So, and then from there, he kind of explains to him, "Look, there were x-rays done on Gabriel, and we found, all these problems. He always says he checks it. Oh, we found all these problems. Do you own BB guns?" And he says, "Yeah, I put them high." He's like, we found these BB guns in him, and, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, "Well, I have 2, and the brother shoots him." And he says, he's blaming it on Gabriel's brother. Oh, he shoots him with the BB gun. And in there, at one point, which was really interesting, and I'm only laughing because it's laughable at this point at what he says. He says, "I'm not a bad person." Well, guess what, Tony? You are. You're a fucking horrible person. You're not just a bad person. You're fucking horrible. So then he says how Gabriel didn't like to take showers, so Pro would have to scrub him with a sponge, which is, I don't know, whatever. And then at some point in time, he says, "Well, can I go see him?" Not with any concern, just, "Can I go see him?" As though, I don't know if he's checking his status or checking to see, at one point I'm like, was that him, maybe I should go finish the job? What? Why would you want to go see him at this point? It's now past 4 o'clock in the morning. Everything happened around 10, 11 o'clock at night. You've spent all these hours not caring to go see him, and now that you're being questioned, now that you're being told the extreme injuries this child has, now you want to go see him. That's interesting. At any point, okay, so then he says, I only spanked him. And then he says, I only spanked him with the open hand. And he says, well, I punched him a couple times. And he says, well, you do realize that he's 8, and a punch from a grown man would probably be a little damaging. And at some point he's like, well, I didn't punch him hard because my fist hurt. Or something like, my knuckles hurt, so I didn't punch him that hard. So at another and then the detective was asked, does he show any emotion? He said no, he shows no emotion, super calm. So on the second portion, which is only a 5-minute interview, he asked him about burn marks, and he starts talking about a broom. He starts talking about how he got hit with a broom, and it was really, really weird. And then he goes into some, hold on. And then he goes into some kind of story. He's kind of lighthearted, telling the detective this story, which I couldn't make out. But it was right after the broom and broomstick, and he said that happened 2 months ago. But it was some kind of weird, lighthearted story. And then we went into another portion of the interview, which lasted about an hour. And this was the interview between him and Detective Wong. And then the whole time the other detective, Uribe, was on the other side watching and listening. And he finally admitted to hitting him over the head with his fist and open hand. It went from 10 or more times. And then, no, I think it stayed at 10 or more times. Hit him in the body. He said he lost count. At first he was saying it was only 10 times. And then he said he lost count. Picked him up, and so every time, now if you can imagine, this guy is a really big guy, right? And, you or I were to get hit by this guy, we'd probably fall, right? I mean, just even force and velocity. I mean, anything that hits you, you would fall or fall back, or something would happen. So he literally said that 4 to 5 times he picked him up and then hit him again. So after he hit him and Gabriel fell to the floor, he picked him up and hit him again. And that was punishment. That was discipline for lying, for saying that Pearl lied. Then he said that he tried to walk away and that didn't work. He also said that with the burn marks, that he never smoked around the children, and it was because Pearl had a strict no secondhand smoke around the kids. In this interview, which was really interesting because I've had my own theories about this, but in this interview he said that his mom used to hit him with cables and burn him with cigarettes. So of course this is something that, it's not new for him. But it was weird for him to, just kind of interject that into the conversation. But I guess it kind of led there because they were talking about discipline, and the detective was kind of like I said, the detective was buddying up with him, and they were kind of like, oh yeah, I can understand. So he said that. Then he turned around and said that he was out of control, but couldn't hit hard because his knuckles hurt. At one point he said this is a mistake, a big mistake. And that he was just lying to the other detectives because he was scared. And then at one point they had talked about getting in fights in high school, and if he hit Gabriel harder than he hit anybody in high school, and he said yes. And then he said, would you say that you hit him harder than you've hit anybody else? And he said yes. So that was interesting. I think one of the big things that he kept saying was that the reason this was happening is because Gabriel kept having social workers coming over to the house and police and whatnot. By the end, he said that he was really sorry for what he'd done and he would never touch him again, and he never touches the other kids. So, like I said, the first interview with with Aguirre took place about 5 to 6 hours after the 911 call. We're saying, from my understanding, it was like 4 o'clock in the morning. Around that time, that's around the time the detective believed it was. So he said around 4, and he said that he did start off being honest, and he started being more honest towards the end. And then when asked if at any point in time that he felt that Asaro was being 100% completely honest, the detective said no. He wasn't. They also asked Asaro about the stain on his pants. He said it was because he carried Gabriel. And he had some kind of cut on his finger. And then kind of towards the end, when he was talking about after the aftermath of when he put Gabriel into the shower and he was trying to get him to wake up, and he talked as though he was kind of lighthearted about it. It was kind of like a matter of fact, he had bonded with this detective and thought the detective was on his side so much that he was just kind of matter-of-factly telling him, yeah, this is, what we did. But in all the cases, he never sounded like he was really emotional about what happened, or even really just cared about what he had done to Gabriel. So today was kind of, it was kind of hard to deal with. Tomorrow will be the last testimony that we hear for the prosecution. From there, we're going to go into the defense and their whole whatever their defense is. So today it was kind of like just listening to the recording of the interviews. All I could do is sit there and seethe and just wish that there was a way I could just take the guy out myself, because it was really hard to go through today. Yeah. I'll take some questions now for 5 minutes, because I can't dwell too much on this today. Is Pearl going to testify at all in Aguirre's trial? I don't know. If they do, it would be on the defense, and I doubt it. When people put stuff that harass you, I am reporting. Okay, thank you. Defense will be funny for sure, yeah. It'll be interesting. Flow. It's so interesting because you have to have a certain level of psychosis, I think. You have to have no love whatsoever. And I was actually talking to someone today, because I can't understand how some people didn't know that this was happening. Because it was really in their face and they really didn't do anything about it. And they could have done something about it. For heaven's sakes, they could have, I don't know, taken him away, kept him. They could have hid him. They could, I don't know. Because if Asaro was abused, it's, there's no defense for that. Is Aguirre going to take the stand? I don't know. Pearl wasn't estranged from her family. She was in family pictures with Tony even at Gabriel's 7th birthday, so didn't his family and grandparents notice things when they didn't celebrate his 8th birthday? Um, there, that's one of the things that they were talking about today, and I kind of feel bad going into it too much, but they knew something was wrong. Again, it's one of those things, like, so many people could have done so many things, and they just didn't. Yeah, I can't understand myself. Um, uh, yeah. So Gary's reaction, he has no reaction. He always just looks down. I don't know what he's looking at. You know, he just looks down, never really moves. I think he's just there at this point just to be there. You know, I guess waiting for his life to end. I'm not really sure. He just doesn't make any reaction when he walks out into the courtroom. Never. It's the same face that you've seen on TV, the same face you've seen in pictures. It's the same face. He has no emotion. So I don't expect to see any reaction from him unless somebody were to come and, like, I don't know. I don't even know. Do his parents go to the court every day? Not every day. His mom does go. Today she was there with somebody. I don't know who it is. He looks related to them. Not sure. I don't know anything about that family. No one makes any outburst in the courtroom, which is one of the main points I've driven from the beginning, is because one of the main things in order to keep going and keep getting this taken seriously. Sorry, I hate it when my phone does that. Not just change legally for, you know, people going to jail, but to see actual change within the system is by maintaining our composure, being professionals, not having outbursts, not, you know, doing crazy protests or crazy anything, but by doing it in a way where we're showing them that not only do we respect, you know, the law because we have to, but that we want change on a more on a broader scale, that we want it in a positive way, not something that just comes about, like, you know, from us fussing and fighting, if that makes any sense. Do you know who else is left to testify? No, I don't. I won't get that list. I won't get that information till later tonight. And even at that point, I can't give out that information if I get it, because sometimes I don't get it. And I only get it because there's people out there who get information, you know, from other, like, it just gets passed down to me in a weird way. So I won't know until later, if even that. Will he be taking the stand? I don't know. If I don't have information from prosecution about who's going to be testifying, there's no way I'm going to have information from the defense about who's testifying. So sorry, I don't have that information for you. Anything else? Okay, guys, I think I'm going to go. It's time for me to listen to music. Do you know anything about the judge? Yes, I know that he's amazing. And I don't know if they're in protective custody, but let me tell you about this judge. He tries to keep everything as lighthearted as possible for the jurors because it is a tough case. It is a very tough case. There is no case that anybody knows of that's as bad as this one. So he does try to keep it lighthearted. He does try to, you know, like, he'll say, "Oh, go Dodgers," or, you know, he'll make little comments to kind of keep everybody happy. And that's one of the nice things. Like today, I think he asked if it was hot in the courtroom, and the bailiff said, I'm always a little hot, Judge," and he goes, "I meant temperature wise." So it was a cute little, you know, banter back and forth just to keep you know, the emotion a little less serious so that people, you know, can get through the day. Yeah, this judge is really good. I really enjoy being in his courtroom and listening to him talk, and just watching him like kind of scold the attorneys, all the attorneys. It's usually kind of fun. I had a joke about it, but I won't say it here. But it's kind of fun to watch him. He's very serious. He's very to the point, and he's not going to take anybody's mess. So we got a good judge on our side, or not on our side, just on the side of law. You know, because he's not on our side. He's just a judge. He's on his side. He's on the side of the law. So again, so I'm gonna cut off now. You guys all have a great day. Happy Halloween. I hope you have, you know, great candy treats and stuff like that. Okay, peace.